Well, hey there, all you rockaholics and CGCM Rock Radio faithful. My name is Bob Bannister. Welcome into another edition of Rock Talk with CGCM Rock Radio right here on YouTube. This time around, we catch up with a guy by the name of Skully, aka Barry Waddell. He is the guitarist and one of the founding members of the band Seasons of the Wolf. They've got a brand new single out. It's called Destiny. We sit down with Barry for an honest conversation about what it's been like being in Seasons of the Wolf, the history of the band, what's coming up next, and where things are going. It's a very cool conversation with a very cool individual that you don't want to miss. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this channel because you don't want to miss what's going to go on in the world of rock or what's coming up. It's just that simple. It's Rock Talk, where we talk rock because that's how we roll. Right here on YouTube with CGCM Rock Radio. And joining us on this edition of Rock Talk right here on CGCM Rock Radio and YouTube, the one, the only, Skully from Seasons of the Wolf. How you doing, my friend?
Good. How you doing, Bob?
Doing very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, but is Bob good?
That is good, yeah. Just don't call me late for dinner.
I didn't know whether it's like some people might call you Bobby.
No. Oh, hell no. No. I used to get called that when I was a wee little kid, and I absolutely hated it then, and I absolutely hate it now. So
that's kind of like with my name. My real name is Barry.
Right.
I'm Scottish, and with the whole rock and roll thing, and getting dressed up the way I did, and everything with skull and crossbones and wolves, earrings, stuff. I had wolves here and there. It just didn't seem like a proper name for a guy in a heavy metal. Oh, it's Barry. What, Barry Manilow? And people used to go, oh, Barry Manilow. And I'd be like, no, man, that's got to change. And some guys in the band gave me the Skully thing back in the 80s when I was a lead singer. Like I mentioned that to you before. So, and I was like, yeah, let's go with that. That sounds more like a heavy metal guitar player. Skully.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now most people in the business, bands and otherwise, besides my parents and a few friends, know me as Skully. They don't even, they're like, what? Who? Barry's your real name? I'm like, nah, let's just make it, I always put it on the albums, Barry Waddell.
Yeah.
I do put my full name, but I go AKA Skully.
Right. So give us the backstory of Seasons of the Wolf.
Well, okay. Just to go beyond that, the Skully thing, that ties into it all. I was the lead singer in a band called Equinox from 1984 up to 1988. And during that time, I wrote most of the lyrics and I played guitar half the time. I was out front doing it, and then every now and then I'd pick up the guitar and do that thing. And during that time, we had a keyboard player that left the band and moved to LA. And the sound engineer that we had, because I worked with him at a grocery store out on the islands, we became really good friends, and he started learning keyboards. So when our keyboard player left, he jumped in the band, and that's Dr. Samurai.
Okay.
AKA Dennis Risto, the keyboard player for Seasons of the Wolf. And we started the band, him and I. When Equinox broke up, I'd already used the name Equinox from like 1974 all the way up to 1988. And I used it for two different lineups, one in Virginia and one in Florida. And when that band broke up and we were sitting at Perkins having breakfast, just him and I, because he came in and started playing keyboards to replace the other guy who left in Equinox. And then that band broke up, and we're sitting, everybody else is split, and we're the ones that established the studio that we work at and built the stage and all that. So we decided, well, you know what? Let's not use, Equinox anymore. Let's think of something else. And he and I both always, I turned him into a Blue Oyster Cult fan because I got him started early when I was working with him at the store. Back then, he was listening to Devo and stuff like that, and that's cool. But I was like turning him on to like Deep Purple and Blue Oyster Cult, and he was really starting to get into it. And I tended to kind of always like bands that had a longer name, more of a phrase. That's typical nowadays, though. But back when we came up with it, there was only like you could maybe count on your hands like 8 or 9, 10 bands that did that. Like
True enough.
Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark.
Yep.
Blue Oyster Cult, Electric Light Orchestra, stuff like that. And so we didn't even think about it. But I said, so, dude, have you written anything new lately? And he goes, well, I'm working on this piece called Seasons of the Wolf. And I just looked at him and I go, dude, that's our band name. And we have a song for it too, but we just never have recorded it. He wrote all the lyrics for it. And it's just the thing of it is we needed to go with some shorter songs. So it was like that thing is like 8 minutes long, so we never really bothered to record it because it's pretty involved. It's kind of a concept thing about the life of a wolf, the forces and stuff. We were going to incorporate that at some point. We figured, well, let's do it at the end of our career, like for the last album. The last album we ever record. Let's put Seasons of the Wolf on that one, And then, of course, we went against our own better judgment on the first couple of really weird albums we recorded on like half-inch tape in a studio. We put out a couple of cassette albums, and that's where we got our start. And we ended up writing a song called Computer Automated Death. To tell you the truth, ties in. We've always been known as the Prophets of Doom. And a lot of our songs tie into a lot of stuff that happens in the world eventually. But we wrote Computer Automated Death, and it was 13 minutes long.
Okay.
And we went and put that's like, well, how come we didn't put Seasons of the Wolf on? Well, we're saving that till the end.
It's kind of prophetic.
That's our beginnings, man. We continued on as Seasons of the Wolf, but it was just him and I. At first, we were just going to do like movie soundtrack type music because we're both in the John Carpenter and Tangerine Dream and stuff in horror and sci-fi films. So it was just him on keyboards and me on guitar, coming up with like these riffs and tying them in together because we both love Blue Oyster Cult, but we wanted to take it a step further, maybe play a little bit, a little heavier and incorporate like synthesizers and stuff like Utopia would use, the band Utopia. And like, if you've ever heard Ronnie Montrose when he got that band Gamma.
Yep.
And they brought in a lot more keyboards, and it was just such a cool blend between heavy guitars and really weird keyboard parts. So that's what we wanted to do. We weren't your average, let's write a 2 or 3 minute song, and mainstream stuff. We didn't care. We were young and just starting out Seasons of the Wolf. So we wrote all this material. And in the meantime, we started auditioning some singers. I was already singing in Equinox, but I didn't want to sing anymore. I wanted to, I was the guitar player now. I was the guitar player. And a lot of the stuff I was coming up with, there was no way in hell I could sing a counter melody over top of what I was playing.
Right.
It'd be like Randy Rhoads trying to sing, or whatever.
Yeah.
I was getting more involved into the guitar stuff as far as leads and counter melody riffs and everything. And my lyric style, I would write counter melodies and then I'd pick up the guitar and I'm like, oh, hell, there's no way I can sing that and play that riff. It just didn't sync up right. We need to get a lead singer. So we started auditioning lead singers. This was the summer of 1988. And I had a bass player and drummer at the time that weren't with us permanently. They were just friends, and they were coming out, learning a few things, and helping us audition a singer. Because singer was what we knew we could get a bass player and drummer. We knew a lot of them, but we wanted to make sure we had the right singer for the material that we were doing. And my van broke down one day. We had already auditioned a bunch of guys, but my van had broke down one day. And my little brother, Wes, had just gotten out of high school. And he'd got his car and everything. He'd only had it for about a year. And he wasn't working that night, and I needed a ride to practice,
Mm.
And so we showed up, thank you. He sat there. He always loved watching the bands I was in and stuff. And he sat there and watched us audition a couple of singers. And these guys were like, no, And so that was it. And he says, hell, let me have a shot. I'm like, looking at my partners, and the bass player and the drummer weren't even paying attention at the time. I think they were taking a smoke break. I'm like, yeah, okay. He knew because there was a handful of songs left over from Equinox that I had written, and he knew those songs. And that actually became at least the first handful of Seasons of Wolf songs was leftovers from the last band that I'd written.
Okay.
Along with stuff that Dennis and I were working on. We had like about a dozen of them.
Mm-hmm.
My brother knew like 5 of those Equinox songs and that had never gotten recorded, like Makes No Difference, Hell's Fire and Brimstone. I can't even remember the other 2, but anyway, that's what we were doing. And the other guys knew him well enough, the bass player and drummer. So they come back in and we're like, okay, little brother, he's 10 years younger than me. At the time, I'm 28. I just turned 28, and he's 18. Have at it, man. I mean, you've seen and done enough of this, and he had experience doing plays.
Okay.
In theater from the high school he was in down in Sarasota, Florida. And so he did have good character right off the bat. I know I seen him do like the West Side Story. I went and saw him do that and Christmas Carol and a couple other things at the theater. He was really good at it. He knows how to act. So, and dance and all that kind of stuff. And so he jumped up on stage and we launched into Makes No Difference. And he sang it and it sounded like me.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it sounded, he kind of, and I'm like, but he had his own, a little bit young and a little bit nasally.
Okay.
It had a nasally, like baby devil type voice. And when you hear him, you can hear some of the early stuff. You go, geez, yeah, he's got the pipes, but it's almost like Geddy Lee type thing. It takes some getting used to the first time you hear him sing, but it's in pitch.
Yep.
And it's doing all the right stuff, and the character's there, and he's landed it in the pocket. He's got the rhythm from dancing and stuff like that. And he knows how to stay on the beat and place it in there, and with a lot of character. And the bass player and drummer's going along, boom, 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 and they look up and they see my brother singing, and they're going, "Holy shit, that's your brother!" And I'm singing, and I'm going, "Yes, that's my brother singing. I'll be damned. Mom and Dad are going to be pissed." That's our humble beginning. On the way home that night, he's driving me home, of course, because the van was broke down.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Did you like what you did?" And he says, "Oh, I love it." And I'm like, "You want to be the singer for this band?" The guys all already approved. I mean, they're like blown away. They're crapping their britches. And you're young and you look good. And at that time, my hair was down to right around my shoulders.
Yeah.
And he had short blonde hair. So we went for it. And we came out, we did some work on the studio one night, dressing it up and getting our stuff. We have our own stage and we did this and that. And we're working on some songs. And then Dennis didn't show up one night, and it was just my brother and I working on some songs and fixing up the studio. And all of a sudden, we heard this bang, boom, boom, do, 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 do. A bass player and drummer a couple of doors down in the same warehousing complex. And we had it till we could crawl up on the roof and look down on this little hole. So we both climbed up on the roof and looked down the hole. And here's a bass player and drummer in their dad's paint shop or whatever, pounding away and playing some, like, trying to play some Rush tunes and playing and some Led Zeppelin and whatnot. And I'm going, damn, man. So come in, walk, boom, 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 boom. Hey, yeah, I remember you from down at the other warehouses playing with that one band. And then he introduced me to the drummer, the bass player, Clay. And I'm like, well, what are you guys doing? Well, we're just, just jamming, man. We ain't got, nothing going on. We don't have any of our own songs or anything. We're just jamming. I'm like, yeah, well, it sounds good, man. How would you like to come over and jam with us tomorrow night? We got practice tomorrow night. We got keyboards, and I took them next door and opened up the door, and they seen the studio we built and the stage and all the stuff, and they were like, holy shit. They're already in the band before they're in the band. They're like, oh man, we are home. This is serious. So that's how the first lineup was formed. And by that October, we had our first full lineup. And we had like maybe a good dozen songs that were fairly tight. So we had a Halloween party, and that was our first show with those guys. So that's why I always say, everybody's like, oh, you're telling a fib. When you say Seasons of the Wolf was actually formed on October 31st, 1988. No, it's the truth, man. I mean, and it goes right along with all the stuff we write too, the horror film stuff and everything else. So the stories kind of interconnect and blend with the whole Seasons of the Wolf vibe, and always has.
And that is,
those guys were only with us for a couple of years. And a few years, Clay left. Well, he kind of left and got fired like 3 times for, whatever. Some people, they're in it for a while, and all of a sudden their head explodes, and they become, even before they even cut the first record or during the process of recording the first stuff, they lose their freaking marbles out after a couple of gigs, and they think they're rock gods. They start partying too much, and they start going off the deep end quick. I've seen it in my life. I've seen that happen several times. But so we finally had to let him go. And the drummer that came along with him, they were good friends, but he even noticed, he was good. Like the first time we got rid of him, the drummer was going to leave too, because that's his buddy. We came in together, we're going to go out together. And he kind of did. But he came back in 2 weeks and he says, no, I'm sticking with you guys. and then Clay comes back, and I'm like, and we sat down and talked, and I said, come on back in, man. Just stop doing that crap, and let's get serious about this. But it happened like 3 times was a charm on that deal. But we did manage with those 2 guys during that 3 times thing between October 1988 and probably a whole year after that, in 89, we went to Bob Fazioli's Trick Track studio, and we recorded 2 albums worth of material, and we released them both by 1990. We had them both out circulating around the Tampa Bay, Florida. We were selling them. We even shrink wrapped the damn things ourselves, man.
Oh, wow.
Save money. I designed it, real simple, stuck the J cards in. Bob, he was there. He had like a bunch of recorders, and he was running off. He had ordered the boxes of tapes, and we had run them off and put the stickers on with all the songs on the inside on cassette tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Slap them together. He had a shrink wrap machine, and we had all the guys there all doing something. Okay, you do this, I'll do this, and you do the shrink wrapping and slap it in the box. And we ran off like 500 copies of the first one, and then the second one. And we sold them out at our shows, and we sold them out of the back of our car driving around town, mom and pop stores. Hell, we even put some in pawn shops. Wherever we could stick our tapes, we'd do it, man.
Absolutely.
All the way from Tampa to St. Petersburg, all the way down to Fort Myers, Braden, Sarasota, whatever. We would take days, and we'd go out together and dress up like the band and walk through the mall and stuff, and everybody would see us walking through like, wow, these guys look like Metallica or something. So we had fun, and that's how we promoted our shows back then too, man.
Absolutely. You got to take it into your own hands.
Yeah.
You got to take it into your own hands. Like I remember watching a video there with the band Slaughter the one time, and they were talking about, back in the 80s, like you were just talking about. You go out there with a bucket of hot water and glue, you dunk the poster in the glue, you slap it up on the telephone pole, and just keep going and promote yourself that way. Record companies be damned, because they're not gonna have your back.
My brother and I used to have, during the early days, after those guys were gone, but we had then we brought Aaron Winders in on drums and Phaedra in on bass. That's our female bass player, and she lasted like 7 or 8 years with us. So that's Aaron lasted a couple of years, and then came Wayne. And once Wayne came in 1994, and we had started working with Bud Snyder at Telstar Studio. And the reason that's very important in our careers, because Bud Snyder was the engineer for the Allman Brothers for most of his life. Right. And he worked with Tom Dowd. And when we were in the studio, man, he picked up all kinds of stuff from Tom Dowd. So he applied that wisdom to us. And then, Wayne came along in 94, and we had recorded 27 songs.
Oh, wow.
Snyder. What would happen is he'd have to go out with them, or like he did some engineering for Black Crows. He did some stuff with Bad Company. And, oh God, what was that other band we met in the studio? I can't even remember. The one guy he went out on tour with that ended up dying in a boating accident. This was in the early 90s, right around that time. I can't think of the name right off the bat. But anyway, he would call me up. Bud would call me up, and he'd say, hey, listen, how he met us was through Bob Fazioli, the guy at the first studio we recorded at. Because Bob used to call Bud up and ask him for advice on how to record us, because Bob was more of a country guy. He was more of a country guy, country bass player guy and stuff with country music. Mm-hmm. And we were the only like heavy metal, weird progressive band in Bob's studio, and back then it was like $25 an hour for his studio. So during our sessions, he would call Bud Snyder up because he knew him, and he had asked for advice on how to record us and stuff, So that was, in a way, Bud was kind of involved in those first 2 cassette tapes, even though not directly. So he knew about us. So when we went to him, he's like, yeah, you guys are still here. You guys are still doing it. I said, well, come out to our studio. Come out to our studio. We got a stage there. We want to perform for you a few songs and let you hear us. Okay. And he actually did. He came to our studio with his studio partner, and we played for him like there was 1,000 people there. It was just him and his studio partner. We got all dressed up, fogged up the stage with the lights and the whole thing, and we slammed that crap right down his throat, man. Right. And when we were done, he goes, I need to get you guys into the studio and record, because you guys have obviously been playing this stuff over and over again. You're tight. I can bring you in, and we can probably do this real easy. So what happened is it was actually a spec deal at first. We didn't really have to pay a whole hell of a lot of money. I mean, we did buy the reels, which those 2-inch reels back then were like freaking $150 a reel. And you can only fit like 2 or 3 songs on a reel, depending on the length of the song. Average, you could fit 3 songs on a reel. So we had to buy like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that was the first round. But like I said, we ended up doing 27 songs. And how that happened is he would go out on tour, and then he'd come back. And when the Allman Brothers came into town to unload at the studio to do some rehearsal at that studio, Bud would call me up on the phone, and he'd go, hey, you and the boys want to come down here and help Red unload the truck? The famous roadie, Red. Mm-hmm. We've met him. He coached us. I mean, get your ass on the truck, and we're pulling off like 2 drum kits, because they use two drum kits, Allman Brothers. These giant freaking They're all packed nice in these big road cases and shit. And going, man, wish we had this. Wish we had that. I've actually carried Greg Allman's Hammond B3 and his big keyboards, man. I got to tell you, it takes 4 guys to get that sucker off.
Oh, yeah. They're not small and they're not light.
And Red would be, but see, for doing that, Bud says, okay, you guys come and help Red unload the Allman Brothers equipment. And when it's time for them to load out, come down and help them load out, you and the boys, Seasons of the Wolf. We would do that. And he says, and once that's done, I'll get you guys in here and give you a couple, 2 or 3 free nights to record everything you got, all the new stuff. And we'll use that as pre-production. So after this happened 2 or 3 times over the spread of about maybe 2 years, we had recorded like 27 songs. Then Aaron left the band and Wayne came in, but it was just in time. And Wayne was a really good drummer, learned quick. He came in July, and by October, we were in the studio with Bud recording that first self-titled CD that would be our first international release. And so we had 27 songs to pick from that Aaron had played drums on. And we were like, okay. And of course, Bud was we gave him co-producer credits on that first self-titled album because he had a big hand in all this. And we learned so much from him. And he's the guy that we kind of left it up to pick the songs, almost like a record label. Even though we didn't have a record label yet, he was talking to Jason Flom from Atlantic Records because he knew him. And Jason at the time was working with Dream Theater and Sabotage and a few other bands. And we got to meet him in the studio, and I got to talk with him on the phone. So there's a lot of things that happen with the connection with Bud Snyder in our time working in the studio. I mean, I even had members of the Allman Brothers walk in when we were recording and listen and go, hey, man, you guys really got some nice layering. And I'm like, wow, man, one of the guys from the Allman Brothers is telling me we got some nice layering. I'm all excited.
Fanboy.
And they're not even metal. And they were teasing Bud. The whole time they would joke with Bud because we were the only and first metal band that he had ever recorded. It was okay. I mean, real metal. All right. Yes, he had worked with Bad Company and then he'd worked with Allman Brothers and he's engineered a lot of stuff. But we were the first metal band, but he always said he liked what we were doing because he could hear a little bit of the blues influence in my guitar playing and certain aspects of the arrangements, even though it was dark and creepy and heavier, and he liked it. And the thing of it is, he picked Victim of Darkness. One of the heaviest, it's a mid-tempo type song, but it's really heavy, and he picked that one to be on the album. That was because that was his favorite song. And the guys in the Allman Brothers were telling him, Bud, what's going on with you, man? They're always kidding him about us at the time, But that's how it happened, man. And Bud is what really, and Telstar Studio is really what got it rolling for us. And during that time, we in the studio when we were recording that album, right around that time and that material, we got the opportunity to open up for Blue Oyster Cult.
Nice.
Our favorite,
Absolutely. There you go.
Yeah, right. And I'd already met those guys backstage in Janice Landing in the bar. I met Buck Dharma and I had him autograph some stuff a couple years earlier than that. The first live Seasons of the Wolf show wasn't playing in some party. It wasn't playing at some local bar. It was playing at the Manatee Civic Center, opening up for Blood, Sweat, and Tears in 1990 with the other 2 guys that had gotten out of the band. But we did do those cassette tapes, and we did get to do that. And we pissed off all the other bands around town because we played this big festival. It was the Friends of Earth Music Festival, 1990, August 1990. You always remember those first and those big ones like that. And that is what did it. Immediately after that, working with Bud and the fact that we got our picture in both the Braden and the Sarasota papers, photographers were there, and there's my brother up front. Now his hair is already getting down longer than mine and all puffy and blonde. And we're really starting to learn our chops, So that is it. That's how the band started, man.
Very, very cool. Now, before this goes much further here, I've just got to let you know I'm just using a free session of Zoom. I've only got about 6 minutes left, so I'll cut to a couple more questions here for you here.
All right.
So real quickly here, where was it here? Oh yeah,
you can
brand new
edit
single.
this any way you want to.
That's okay.
Sure,
you know what? That's
you can actually edit it out, man. Because
no.
Get me going, especially when I get to talk to people in person through a video chat. It's exciting. I like that.
I'm a radio guy. You don't have to talk to me about talking. I can talk the ears off an elephant sometimes. Got a brand new single on CGCM Rock Radio, Destiny. Do we have a new album coming out soon?
Yes, we do. And the story on that album is that is all the leftover material that we recorded with Aaron before Wayne came in out of those 27 songs. They've been laying around collecting dust all these years and not gotten used. And we had always wanted to maybe re-record them and put them on an album, which a few of them we did on selected albums over time. There's a couple of tracks that we re-recorded and put on the Lost in Hell album that came out of those original 27. And a couple, I think, on Nocturnal Revelation, and one or two on like Centuries of Pain on Last Act of Defiance. But there was a whole bunch left over. And we went through, Dennis and I sat down and listened to it, and we picked out 9 songs of those original recordings. And with the technology, and now that we know what we're doing with our own studio, we were able to separate all those tracks down and keep all the original bass tracks and drum tracks from Aaron, the bass tracks from Phaedra, and all the original guitar, rhythm guitar tracks, and some of the leads, and my brother on vocals, because he's no longer with the band now.
Okay.
He left like an album or two ago. But the thing of it is, we wanted to put this out and be clever about it. And what inspired me to do that was like a year and a half ago or a year ago, Blue Oyster Cult, once again, being one of our favorite bands. Boom. They got a new album out called Ghost Stories. And that's what they did for that album.
Oh,
that's not new material. They went back and took stuff that they had never finished and did recording, and they broke it out and everything, and they did embellishment with finish it like with new stuff to give it at least a professional sound and everything, and they put it out. And I'm like, wow, that is so cool. We got to do that. Boom. So we did, and we're almost finished. We got like 1 or 2 more mixes to do on a couple of songs, and in the meantime, we're releasing a couple of singles from that. And Destiny was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's picked up on a lot of radio programs and doing well. More of a hard pumping, driving type song. And we just released, on October 31st, we're releasing a second single, but we've already started sending it out to radio. I got it back mastered, and as of yesterday, I've already pumped it out. As a matter of fact, Rich has already played it. Both Riches.
Yeah.
Jim Marie and Rich Dillon. They've both already played it on their shows, and it's already getting played on a bunch of other places now too. That's why I'm like on coffee right now. I got lists I'm sending out. And that track is called Land of the Dead, which makes it nice for Halloween and the whole spooky scenes of the wolf vibe that we give off. So that one's out there now. So we have 2 singles.
Very, very cool. And I know somebody's going to probably write that into the CGCM Rock Radio Top 20 Countdown poll. And we'll get all the fans to vote on that and send that one up the chart as well. Hey, Skully, I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of Rock Talk. What's your website? What's your socials so fans can keep in touch?
Well, we were one of the first bands on the internet back in the 90s. Like right as soon as all that started happening, like 95 or 96, we were already on it before all that, what it became. And the thing of it is, we had websites, and you have to pay for that crap.
Yeah.
We have recently found, we got rid of all that because Facebook just took over.
Yeah.
Our website wasn't doing anything anymore, so we'll just go with Facebook now. It's facebook.com/Seasons of the Wolf. And
Absolutely.
if you want to get in touch with me personally, it's facebook.com/Skully SOTW. And that's the best way to communicate with me. And our phone number is listed on our studio page there. You know, if anybody wants to call for booking so we can get over there and play some festivals.
And I just wanted to take this time to thank Skully for joining us on this edition of Rock Talk right here on CGCM Rock Radio and YouTube. And I want to thank you. Keep watching, keep listening. We'll catch you again next time with Rock Talk on YouTube with CGCM Rock Radio.